Look out, the captain's away.
The Rugby League Hour, brought to you by MicroBio Solutions Limited, makers of Effluix, the new way to clean up dairy effluent and wastewater while increasing the fertiliser value of your irrigation in one easy step. Visit microbio.co.nz for more.
Strong, powerful, try.
Rugby League, mate. My name is Martin Devlin.
And I'm Tony Kemp.
And we're doing a whole hour on the NRL Round 11, the Magic Round. And the way that this works is we will review not every single game. We'll look at winners from the weekend and then follow that up with the Up the Wires segment. He's a ledge. We love this guy, Frank Endicott, going to join us around about 1:30. Not only talk the Warriors, but also the South Island bid. And the 16s and 18s at the Warriors, and Frank was instrumental in making sure that that was the foundation of the club was going to be based on the young people. We'll go head to head, where pretty much I just do the smash Shoffley. What I do is I stand over the clutch putt, mate, and I just own that segment. Tony does his top five and the Effluix Cleanup Award. We begin the show same way every single week. It's called Six Questions, and they're all about the Warriors this week. Is that the Warriors' best ever NRL win outside of the finals ever?
No.
Well, which one's better
best
than that?
One, 2003, Brisbane at home.
Yeah, okay, that's not bad.
Campo knocks Webke out. Go and have a look at it on YouTube. 10 times better.
What does that say to every other team in the comp that Warriors win?
Well, you better show up and play, otherwise you get your pads pulled down.
Would you call it a season-defining win for the Warriors?
I don't want to sit on the fence. I'll say yes.
Under the circumstances. Was that an off day for Penrith, or did they just get outplayed and outfought on the night?
Excuse me? Ask Ivan Cleary.
Wasn't that a question to him? How about losing to a reserve side? And his reply to that.
Did they want it more?
What does it tell you about this particular Warriors side, the squad depth and the attitude of those players?
Well, let me put it this way, Marty. If I was working for forward, I'd roll out those old Fairlanes and put them in the garage and probably put a cover over them and bring out the new boys.
Okay. Is that win enough, do you think, to propel the Warriors on a winning run now and a top 8 spot?
Well, it should be, and that's some defining questions around that. Who does he leave in and who does he leave out? And I think there was a big answer to one of the questions of the 6 jersey on the weekend.
The Weekend Roundup.
Let's go through the results first, check out the table, and then kick it off with exactly what has gone on in that Magic Round. Raiders versus Bulldogs started it on Friday. Dogs should have won that game. Come on.
They should have. I remember sitting there watching a text of the new, thinking the Dogs have got this one in the bag. Kick out, they were on fire, and then all of a sudden it came out 11 men, Canberra, on the 94, on the back of a 94 speech by Laurie Daly, and mentioning Quinton Pongia in and around that final that they'd won. And of course, remember Johnny Lomax standing in the grandstand. He got sent off the week before. They were never going to lie down, Canberra. You know, just shutting up shop too early. I think that just shows you Canterbury don't know how to shut out a game yet.
Broncos with a late field goal to beat the Eagles.
Yeah, well, the Eagles were unlucky, you know, and the Broncos are a bit sketchy, mate. You know, like if you look at that grand final last year, they had it wrapped up at 28-12. And then they come back and they nearly get their pants pulled down again. They did it without Reynolds.
Your Knights 4 in a row now without Kalen Ponga. How about that?
Well, I don't know if you watched that at half time. They're getting dicked, the Knights, by the Titans. And then all of a sudden they swung it around. The Titans are the same, hot and cold. Man, they don't know where they're coming from with Fafita at the moment. And the Knights keep doing it without Ponga.
Sharks, how convinced are you now after beating the Roosters?
Best team of the comp at the moment, Marty. Best team of the comp at the moment.
Cowboys had lost 5 in a row. They bounced back. They win finally.
I'm going to give you a marker here. Latrell Mitchell doesn't finish the season.
Warriors beat the Panthers. We'll talk extensively about this in a few minutes. Storm just roll on and smash the Eels.
And the Eels, Arthur has to be under pressure there. And you know the worst thing about that? No Jerome Hughes and no Munster finishing the game.
Dolphins over the hapless, hopeless Tigers.
I know, and Benji coming out and saying we were our own worst enemies. When are they going to learn?
I want to talk about Magic Round to start with, Tony, because it is so good, so successful. Apparently brings in about $50 million into Brisbane, Queensland. And the recipe, look, this is what I jotted down. Give me a moment. They seem to get all the ingredients right. And if I was making a casserole called the greatest weekend in Australian sport. You got to get the occasion right. You got to have, I think weather is really important, because if it's howling and freezing cold, people don't want to go out. You got to get the entertainment. You got to have a fantastic schedule of games and time. That the venue and the place to hold, that's so important. And then people bring people. Add or subtract anything from that, and explain to me why this is so good and has been so good every year.
Well, the first thing, I think you've got the venue. I think that's before you even consider doing it. We'll talk about New Zealand. Can we supply the venue? The other part is Tauranga, for instance. The Mount Maunganui is too far down the road. Like, you can go over there to Brisbane, Marty. You don't have to stay in Brisbane. You can stay just down the road to the Gold Coast. Go over there on the Thursday, travel up on the Friday, go back Friday night, come back up Saturday afternoon. You know what I mean? It's got that nice feel, and like you said about it, the sun, the surf, that beautiful Brisbane climate. But the main thing for me, and I was part of this last year and have been to an Origin. If you ever get to go to an Origin, I always tell people, make sure you go to the Brisbane one. Like, the Brisbane Origin is the best Origin.
Well, is it because it's a rugby league town? Is that why, is it?
It is more than a rugby league town. Like, it is one-eyed, Brisbane. Like, we see this here at the Warriors and the Wars and all that, but Brisbane is something absolutely special. The thing about Brisbane and the stadium and where it's situated is you can not only walk to the stadium, your train station's right there, your public transport gets you there in an instant, but if you go to the road leading to the station where all the pubs and the restaurants on the road are and the people hang out, it's like a festival before the stadium. The Caxton, everyone goes in, they get themselves worked up before the game, wandering into that beautiful stadium. And then, Marty, like, I don't think we've seen a better Magic Round this year. You know, the games, if you went away for a weekend of rugby league and you had a chance to see, and you're an NRL NRL fan, and you went to this Magic Round, you would be talking about it for decades.
Yeah, this is what I mean. They seem to have all the ingredients exactly right, don't they? Can it be moved somewhere else? Can someone else host it? We'll talk about this a little later on as well. But
no, I don't think. Well, man, there's the best news I heard on the weekend when they said they signed it through to 2027. Like, Brisbane is just the perfect place for the Magic Round. It's like taking your FA Cup away from Wembley and playing it at Tottenham.
Well, they used to have it in Cardiff, and it was never quite the same, was it?
Well, even worse, take it to Wales. You know what I mean? Well, it's like take it out of Brisbane and put it where? You give me a stadium where they can duplicate that.
Well, the only other places you could potentially have it would be in Melbourne, obviously, which is such a sports city, or maybe Sydney. And if you had it in Sydney, you couldn't have it at the Olympic Stadium because it's too far out of the city. You know, you want to where people can do that Caxton Street thing, leave the bars, go to the ground, or watch it in the bar and be part of that atmosphere, even if they aren't inside the stadium. So maybe at the SFS. I mean, obviously, what we're trying to float here is, could Magic Round be played here in New Zealand?
Well, I've got no doubt it can be played here in New Zealand, and you know. It's like when you were talking to me about how do we get teams to go up to Vegas, you know, with the crowds and all that sort of, like, right from the get-go, Brisbane demand the TV crowd. So they always get the Friday night games. So take it to Brisbane. Who did they finish with? The Dolphins.
Yeah.
So they entered it and they exited it with the two biggest Brisbane teams because they knew that the crowds, even if they're going to have a success on the first game, and they're going to have success on the last game. And in between they get that, you know, big upset from the Warriors and all the other games I thought were just fantastic. With the Sharks and the Roosters was absolutely brilliant. And you want to take it somewhere else. It's like you, Marty. You know, if you've got something, don't break it. Don't throw it out to the wolves. You know, and try and recreate it. You've got a gem, mate. Just polish it.
Okay, let's look at the winners then. I want to start with your Raiders because they lost to the Broncos. They got towed up by the Sharks. They got beaten 40-0 by them. They rebound against the Sea Eagles, came back deficit there. Then they have the bye, and now they beat the Doggies narrowly. They're sitting there in the top 8 comfortably. They're sitting in 6th. They've won 6. They've lost 4. Negative points differential. Let's not forget about that for a second. Where are they exactly? Are they still a hot and cold Jekyll and Hyde team?
Well, I think they're over the hot and cold side, and they're starting to get a little bit of consistency about them. And the biggest news to come out of Canberra last week on the back of this is the celebration of the 94 grand final was the signing of Ricky Stewart for another 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, that was a massive call, given that he hasn't taken them to a grand final yet. He's been close enough, but just hasn't got the lollies. And I think what you're seeing at the moment is Ricky Stewart starting to build that momentum with the Raiders, and they've just for me, when I watch the Raiders play, they remind me of an old Newcastle, just roll your sleeves up. They're working man's team, and they just get out there and get that done. And when you look at their side, they actually got a good side, Marty. If they actually get in front of teams and they put their foot on the pedal, they've got enough speed and resilience and strength with Tarpanet and the likes just to absolutely roll over the top of players. I just think they're, at the moment starting to build that resilience. I reckon they're smoky.
Okay, are a definite top 8 side in your mind?
100%.
Not a top 4?
I think they're smoky. I think out of all of the teams that you'd want to play this year in the final series, if they do make the top 4, the Raiders would be the least one you'd like to play.
If I could draw a parallel between a couple of teams,
have you seen how big Joseph Tarpanet is?
He's enormous, mate. But half of those guys are bloody enormous. I look at them and I just think, look, I remember DJ saying to us, Daryl Halligan saying to us a few weeks ago that he was standing next to Nelson on the sideline. He said, "My God," he said,
have you seen how big DJ is?
Yeah. So let's look at
let's make him look big.
Let's look at the Broncos now, though. 7 wins and 4 losses. And if I could draw a parallel between the competition, Super Rugby, and the NRL, to me, they're the Chiefs at the moment. That they're winning, but they just don't seem that convincing. What is it about the Broncos?
Well, they're my favourite after last year's watching the competition. I thought at 28-12 they had that game wrapped up, but Nathan Cleary, I watched the game again, the second half of the grand final, just to get a look at Nathan Cleary again last week. Man, he just absolutely went on.
Yeah, took charge.
One of those highlight reels that he'll play until he's probably the last breath he'll go. Remember that game, And the Broncos at the moment, I think they're just toying with teams. They've got enough in their tank just to toy with teams and get the job done. Manly's a prime example on them. They could have easily lost that game.
Yeah.
They just did enough, and they've still got Reynolds to come back.
But is that good enough doing just enough?
I don't think they're good enough. Still youth, they're very youthful without Reynolds. I think they, if you have a look at Penrith, for instance, this week, and we'll talk about the Warriors in a second, one of the big reasons they lost that game is because Nathan Cleary wasn't there. They went side to side. Their number 6 was average. And when they got a little bit of momentum and got their nose in front, they thought they were back on the wheel.
Yeah, I agree with
that. And then they just made errors.
And we will actually talk about this with the bar. But I thought that when Luai did that break and scored that long-range try, I thought that was going to open the floodgates because that's what he needed to do because he spends so much time jumping side to side. So frustrating watching him. If he goes direct, makes a break, beats a tackle. I mean, he's got the pace to go, which is exactly what he did.
And this is the argument about your halfbacks, you know what I mean? So I think this year you're going to see the team with the number one halfbacks are the teams that are going to be in the final. I think your halfbacks have more say this year than any other year. So, you got no Sean Johnson this weekend, but also you had no Nathan Cleary. You know what I mean? It's which team adapted better in that one. With Reynolds being out, it's the same with Ezra Mann at 7. Which team, with the Manly hot and if you're talking hot and cold, Manly's a hot and cold team of the comp.
The Sharks have won 7 in a row, but more significantly, the last 2 teams that they've beaten, they beat Melbourne down in Melbourne, and now they've beaten the Roosters. And so the Roosters are a formed team, obviously. Melbourne have just got that pedigree. What more needs to happen with the Sharks before you start believing that this team can actually win the comp? Because I know that you're still hesitant. Every time I offered that every week, you're always hesitant.
And I still am. I still am. I just, I don't think... and we'll get a good look at this in the next couple of weeks. So I think Nicho Hynes will be the number 7 for New South Wales. All right, so he gets to play big games. I just don't think Nicho Hynes in a big game like the finals is the player that'll get them across the line. Yet to be proven wrong. Look, there's a couple of big positives for the Cronulla team. I think they're big and mobile. When you look at their side, they're big off the bench. They're big in the middle. And they get their team going forward. I think Nicho Hynes likes that. I think Nicho Hynes' decision-making at the best is probably the best in the competition with the ball in hand. And I just think they're fit. And that's one of Fitzgibbon's mantras is that he wants to be the fittest team in the competition. And when you're looking at, you got Talakai coming off the bench now because you've got young Kevin Iro's son playing in the centres, KL. So KL's playing out there in the left edge, and he's doing a wonderful job and really holding that defence together. But you've got real good impact coming off the bench again, and they're just relentless. Like all night, you're thinking, here come the Roosters again. They'll get him. Big loss, Joey Manu. Joey Manu's not in there. They've lost that best left edge in the comp. but they still were in it for long periods of times. But, they say this, Benji, when you lose and you lose often, you get used to losing. Mm-hmm. When you win often, you expect it to win.
Well, the next game's against the Panthers, so that's the Storm, the Roosters and the Panthers back to back to back, and if they win all three. Your Knights have gone 4 in a row without Ponga. First and foremost, are you surprised by this? With him out, did you think that that's pretty much the season gone? And so the second part of that question is, can they do what they did last year, where they won, a remarkable 9 or 10 games in a row to finish with?
Well, I don't know whether they'll win 9 or 10 games. I think if you're looking at that, I think Canberra might be a better team for a back in that, and hopefully the Warriors have got that in them as well. I just think the Knights, they don't like it when the limelight is around Kalen. So when Kalen's playing and all the limelight goes on Kalen, that he has to do everything, I don't think the Knights actually offer up their best game. I know Sammy Stewart went in this weekend. He was the inaugural captain to present some jerseys. I think Tuala played his 100th game for Newcastle on the right wing, and Sammy presented the jersey. Knowing Sammy myself, Sammy would have talked about what it takes to actually wear this jersey at Newcastle. And those boys, mate, they were down and out against the Titans. Fafita and them were having a field day in the first half, and I thought they were gone. And then all of a sudden they ground their way back, and Jackson Hastings spends 10 minutes in the sin bin. They get 2 tries against them, and he comes back out and he just puts on a nice solid effort, and they end up getting the Titans again. So, mate, can they get on a run? Oh, I think this is their run. Marty. I think other teams are going to get better as the year goes on.
2 quick ones to finish with. The Dolphins are 7 of their last 9. Warriors get them next.
They're having a season like the Warriors.
Like the Warriors did last year?
100%. This is a good game this weekend. Another sellout probably, after that game against Penrith. Everyone's going to come in and watch it. And you got Fido back and he's, bouncing around. Oh, look, I reckon we're in for an absolute bell ringer this weekend.
6:05, it's the last game of the round. Finally, the Storm, they just roll on, don't they? They're just relentless and they roll on. 48 points.
Best coach in the comp.
Yeah,
I think best coach in the comp. I think Bellamy signing for another year. Saddest sight for me was just I thought one of the funniest sights too, to be honest, was like when I fell off that horse and did my abductive groin. Like someone had actually hooked him with a fishing line, didn't it? And pulled, got myself a big one here.
Yeah. And
he's bent over himself backwards. I thought, what did you sprain your ankle or something like that? But it actually must have torn that abductor muscle a bit more. And we said this right at the beginning. If you've had one of those injuries, it's very hard to play through for a long period of time with it. Oh, mate, does he come back? That's the question. Probably misses Origin, which is sad.
Oh, superb!
Up the waz.
How good is that?
We got a whole heap of texts which we're going to deal with in about 10 or 15 minutes, and most of them are at you. All right. The Warriors yesterday, remind me, I sent you a message earlier in the week and I said, look at all these injuries. We're going to get dicked here by 40 points. And you said?
I said they'll probably win.
How on earth was that just wishful thinking? Did you honestly believe that?
It was a bit of wishful thinking, but when you've got a bunch of older guys go out and a bunch of younger enthusiastic guys come in, it can go 2 ways. One, they can be overawed, or the other one is that they buy into your structure and your system and they go out there and they build a bit of confidence around the way that they're playing. And I'm talking in something as simple as, I don't know if you noticed this, Marty, but the contact in that whole game from the Warriors was spot on. Like, when they were making, even Brian Torrey, they said it, I think it was 35 minutes into the game, Brian Torrey was normally making, X amount of breaks or part breaks or whatever, and he just couldn't get through. Every time they kicked that ball down to him, they actually made first up contact really well. Now, when you get a bunch of young blokes doing that and getting more and more enthusiastic, you just knew that they were going to stay in the game.
And that's what they did. They just hung in there, didn't they? I mean, even right at the end when it was 24-20.
Well, there's a few things that have to go your way, all right? So the first thing, I think they completed 63% in the first half, Penrith. That's going your way.
Right.
I think you finished with an 87% completion rate. That's going your way. That means you're in the game. If one team's lacking possession and you're gaining a heap of it and you're staying in it, that means you're petrol, you're not running out of it, and you've got that energy. And then the second thing is, like, I think we've unearthed the number 6 problem. And by design, I think Andrew Webster's answered a lot of the questions himself by putting Clockstead to 6, is that I'm excited about Roger going to fullback, Clockstead going to number 6, Sean going back to 7, and Tamari Martin being that number 14. I think Tamari Martin covers all of your spine problem, and he can play a bit of a mix. If you need to throw him in and cover a centre for a head knock or a wing or something like that, he can do that.
All right, well, let's just unwrap the Christmas paper for a second. You've got to do it more than 1 week in a row, right? Okay, I mean, that's the whole point. He had a barnstormer yesterday. If he does it again against the Dolphins, maybe we'll all be convinced about that, and maybe that 6 and 7 combo's right. Well, it's right for one game at the moment.
Yeah, and Marty, we all know this. They probably can't keep it up on a roll. You know what I mean? So he's going to get Tohu Harris back. Look at the players that are out, just the key players. Tohu Harris, Noel Corder, Sean Johnson, Metcalf, I think, has been a massive loss. So see what happens when you put a 6 into that role, on that left-hand edge especially, and he becomes a threat. Look, Montoya scored. When was the last time you saw him score, Troy?
Well, he was brilliant, I thought. Look, part of it also was, I wonder if you can go back the previous week against the Roosters where they got blown out of the park, but, and we kept mentioning this stat all week, 65 minutes, and the Warriors won that 18-16. But the key to it is that they didn't give up. And I think that gave them the confidence to hang in this game as well. Just being in the fight and thinking, we're only a try behind here.
Well, I don't think that ever went into their mind. I don't think that thought. I was sitting there not thinking, we're only a try behind. I was thinking, it's actually our game to lose. If they keep giving us the ball back, let's make them pay. And I really like the confidence that Tamari Martin got off the back of it. His shape was really good. And it's that movement in the shape when they struggled to get it right in the first half. But as the game went on in the second half, the shape was superb. And how often do you see them hit the front runner on that shape? They normally don't. He was picking the right line, getting to the right defender, and giving a one-on-one with 2 centres running into those holes. How often do you see that happen? Tamari Martin offered something different. And I think the benefit that he had was having Chance Nickel-Klokstad at 6. And it's no coincidence with Chance at 6 that Taupaki at the back has a barnstorm.
He was, but look, it needed also... I think, well, if not career best, but amongst the career best performances from all of those guys at once again. Because you mentioned this last week, that, the Warriors last year, you had 5 or 6 guys playing their best ever league and all at the same time. Well, that game yesterday, you had the same. That was Tane's best game at fullback, easily. And that was, I think, Tamari Martin's best game that I've seen him play.
His best game all year. He hasn't played like that all year. So, it's great for Tamari to come back and get that game under his belt. But what I said was, when you were asked to step up, you have to step up. They stayed over Sydney. They went up to Brisbane. They got themselves into a bit of a, what are you going to call it? A bit of burley, and started to feast a bit on this. You had Jez Tavaga come out and saying we weren't living up to our values and what we're meant to be doing and stuff like that. And right from the get-go, they make the contact. When you're watching footy, 9 times out of 10, you can tell from the very first set in defence what the contact's like, where you're going to go. They let the first set and they score a try. You think, the amount of ticks I got, it's going to be 60.
Yeah, that's it. Here it comes again. Yeah, exactly right.
Mate, it's probably the best time to let them score right from the get-go. They reset and go again. And then when they kicked off again, they got stuck into the contact. And I was like, oh, geez, that's got to hurt.
I asked you early on about the next man up mentality, about having a squad that can replace player with player. And you mentioned all of those guys that are out at the moment, and you think, wow, if all of those guys were back. But even with all of those guys back, could they have played as well again? This is what you have to win a comp, don't you? You can't have 17 guys. You've got to have 30 guys.
Well, Penrith have been doing it all year. You know what I mean? We're not the only team. Brisbane have been doing it. Every team has, Manly haven't got Tommy Trebojevic at the back. Manu's not playing for Sydney City. So it's not that the Warriors had so many players out, it's that they had so many players step up. That's the question. And what I saw was, when you'd asked me what was going on, I would say to you, it looks like they're losing their legs. They're fatiguing. You know what I mean? They're playing slow. They're not as enthusiastic as they normally are. What youth does is it gives you all that. That's natural. You know what I mean? So you get Laban, Lotoa, they get the young hooker come out.
Great, Lotoa,
you get all these young blokes that are just enthusiastic, go out, and then they start putting hits on. You think about it from, this is their grand final, Marty, all right? They're playing against Fisher, Harris and Leota. It's Brian Tohu bringing the ball back to them and Luai running at them and carving them up. Do you think they're going to sit there leading up to that week and go, I'm just going to go out there and lie down? It's like their grand final, and that's what you get. the secret now, and I think this is what they've offered the coaching staff, is how do they keep the wheels turning? Because if you go back to putting the old boys back out there, the old Ford Fairlane, well, mate, you've got to hope that they're going to get you home over the line. And in the first 10 rounds, it wasn't happening.
So that could have been 3-1-7. And I think for most of us, sensibly during the week, it was difficult to predict the Warriors winning that game. I think that TAB had them at $4. It could have been $14 with all the injuries. I know that Nathan Cleary...
$4.75.
3-1-7 turns into 4-1-6. Now you have the Dolphins at home, then you have the bye after that. How goddamn important is that win in the context of the season, because it's a midway point next week? 3-1-7, you're 4 games behind the 500. You're playing catch-up footy from that point on for the rest of the season. Just everything about it, psychologically, getting the next game at home, all of these things.
Look, when you look at me and you were the same, you look at the round, they had, got the Penrith game coming up, got the Dolphins coming up. Geez, they could go 3 in a row here, and all of a sudden they're one from 2. They play the Dolphins, are going to a bye. All right, they're now just outside the 8 with those 3 games. Yeah, so it's critical, and it's now you're off life support, and you're starting to beat now. You got to get the Dolphins. You got to go into the bye, and you got to rest up, because after the bye you get your team back. And by the looks of it, the shot in the arm from Penrith game on the weekend would have given the old boys a little bit of enthusiasm, going, mate, I don't need to worry about players around me. Look at the players that we can pull back in, and they can do a job, and we can recall on that game and say, we just need you to put that performance in this game. And that's where the Warriors can keep the wheels turning. They can keep the momentum up if they can get the boys back and get through these next 2 weeks with, we know, Marty, 6 points. There are 6 points up for offer.
Whole heap of texts that come in. We'll deal with those in about 10 minutes or so. Time to take a little break, and then the He's a Ledge segment. We welcome the former Warriors coach, former champion Kiwi coach, and just all-round good man that he is. Frank Endicott is going to join us. Oh, welcome back. This is the Rugby League Hour.
He's a Ledge.
Got to be the big intro for the big man, Frank Endicott. Thank you so much for joining us, mate.
How are you, buddy? Good, mate.
I'm
Thank
great,
you.
mate. I'm really good, eh? Obviously, we've got to start off with the Warriors yesterday. Your thoughts on that match? Did you genuinely think before kickoff that they were going to win that game?
No, I didn't. And I think most people felt the same as me. Looking at the team they had in, no disrespect to some of those players, but they had some very good players out. They're playing the best team in the competition. I give them no show, to be honest. And to see that win was a thrill. It was wonderful.
And at Frank, when you're sitting there watching it and you're going, go boys, come on, get this one. And just for all the young blokes, Frank, which is a question I want to ask you, when you see their under 16 go out and win the I think it's the flag, isn't it, Frank?
Yes,
and then you see all the young boys that are coming through, getting their opportunity, like Lautoa, Laban. Do you think that we're in a really good spot at the moment with the juniors that, we haven't seen this for many years?
Oh, look, Kempy, and I know that going back in the past, the Warriors have always had very good junior teams, always. We're a breeding ground for good young players. But right now they're in a very good position. I mean, those young people, well, especially the 2 you just mentioned, they're coming through into real strong first grade players, and it looks good for our future. I mean, the little fullback, I thought he had a cracker.
Yeah, he has a cracker, didn't he? Yeah. Look, you two have both coached the Warriors, and you've both been in positions where you're behind the 8 ball, less than 500. You're desperate for a win. So put yourself back in that situation yesterday, Frank. What was Andrew Webster saying to those players before the game that gave them the confidence to go out there and toe-to-toe with a side like Penrith?
Well, he would have given a team talk to give them that confidence, and he would have said he believes in them, and they're getting this great opportunity to play against Penrith, the champions, to make a name for themselves. And they did that. They really did it. They wanted the game more than Penrith, which is very, very unusual, because the last 4 games, the last 4 losses, they've had the attitude's been bad, and they've been quite lethargic. But yesterday they were on fire. They were great.
Frank, are you surprised when you look at the competition now? I was watching the after match when the 94 Canberra side presented to the team that had just been the Bulldogs, and they got up and did a haka. the Canberra boys.
Yep.
And I went, hey, that's more than half the team. Are you surprised at how many Kiwis actually have a massive influence in the competition across the whole lot?
Well, they have. I remember going way back to the mid-90s, and we were training over there with the Kiwis. And Brian Smith, the Parramatta coach at the time, he came to our training session, and he said to me at the time, Frank, do you really realise that 30% of this competition is made up of Pacific Islanders and Maoris? And I said, no, I didn't know that. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And, I can't believe it. The amount of players over there. A lot of players went over their families to try and make a career in their younger ages, and they're doing that now. They're getting brought up as Australians, but they were still born here.
Confused, Frank.
Yeah, as long as their connection is to the Kiwis and the rep jersey. So from here, Frank, and you, Tony, as well. So you've won that game with this group of young guys. There's two parts to this question, Frank. What do? Do you retain those guys because they've actually played so well, even if others come back from injury? And also, what do you say to them ahead of the Dolphins game? Because you've got to prick that balloon fast and say that's just one game, and it gets completely overturned if you don't beat the Dolphins.
Oh, look, I'm a great believer in reward. You know, if players like that go out and beat the top side, they've got to be given another opportunity. And for those players like Sean Johnson, that with injuries, it gives them another week or two to recover properly from their injuries instead of playing with an injury. So, look, they showed me enough yesterday to think that they deserve at least another game, maybe two. You've got to be careful, Marty, that you don't give them too many, because it can go downhill pretty quick. You need to give them a taste and keep them on that high side, you know?
When you watch the Magic Round, Frank, and you look at it and you're sitting at home and the sun's out and then the Canterbury Plains, and you're thinking, man, we've got this beautiful stadium down here. Do you think there should be a second NRL team in town?
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's going on now in a big way, Kempy. Can't say too much at this stage because I'm part of it. But it's really going along well, mate. And, we're very positive about getting that next franchise here in the South Island. It won't just be a Canterbury franchise, it'll be a South Island one.
Hey, Frank, does that mean that Wayne Bennett at 84 will be the next coach?
They drag you back.
Are you making a comeback?
Go on.
I won't be, but Marty Devlin might. He might be coming involved.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. I know, so I talk a great game. Look, would that, and I suppose the Phoenix have got this question to ask as well, isn't it, with an Auckland FC side? Do you divide the support? Is there enough support nationwide for league fans to actually either support one or support both or support the other side?
Well, I've always been of the opinion, Marty, that we had room for one team in the country because of that. We didn't want to divide our strengths. But the more I think about it and the more I've gone into it, there's definitely room down here for a second franchise. And to have a stadium with a roof on, which no other team has, is a major incentive to bring players across. They'd prefer to be playing in a stadium like that than they would in some of the others they play in. So I think, and we've got a good base down here, South Island wide. I think and the derby you would have with the Warriors would be sensational.
Do you think the financial support, Frank, you're talking One New Zealand Warriors, and the way that they've had their last 12 months, the marketability of them has been absolutely phenomenal. You've got every Tom, Dick and Harry. I've just driven here today, and there's big billboards up, and every billboard's got a Warrior face on it. Do you think the market dollar would actually spread that down to the South Island?
Yes, I do. The interest that we're getting from behind the scenes at the moment, not just from New Zealand but from overseas, is phenomenal. I'm confident, very confident that won't be a problem. You'll hear more about this bid very shortly, but I can assure you there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes by a lot of very good people.
Just finally on that, Frank, there's a couple of bids. So there's Moffat's bid as well, isn't there? That's you, okay? So you're doing that, but there is another bid.
No. That's not our one.
Okay. So you've got one. So is there room for two competing bids out of the South Island?
Oh, you can always have two competing bids, but only one's going to get it. And we're pretty confident at the moment, to be honest.
Even though Papua New Guinea has been floated, even though Perth has been floated?
Well, Perth's been tried before. I mean, I remember going to Perth on many occasions, and the crowds weren't that great at the time, and it's a long way to go. I mean, it's for the Sydney teams and the Queensland teams, it's further to go there than this to New Zealand. So, my understanding is, from what I'm being told, that the Australians would prefer a South Island bid than a Perth bid. And then you've got Papua New Guinea. Well, Papua New Guinea, it's their national game, but they're not quite ready for it yet. You look at their stadiums and that, they're not ready for it. They will be in time, but they're not now. So I think the timing is perfect for a South Island bid.
Magic round, man. And the magic result to finish was how good beating Penrith. So good, eh?
Oh, brilliant, wasn't it? You know, I hope they keep going now, because they needed that very, very badly.
Hey, Frank, I'll tell you who will keep going is Just Ask Me next week down in Wanganui. Get on.
Yeah, the old bloke. Yeah, do you want me to ride it? You'll be top one.
Well, he's been carrying you around all season.
Thank you so much, Frank. Great talking to you as always, mate. Appreciate you.
To head.
Oh, this is where Devlin cleans up as always, mate. Just hand me the top 4 spot right now. 6 different subjects. We go head-to-head on these, arguing pro or con, arguing for or against. The Warriors will now go on and make the 8.
Oh, I'd like to think so, Marty. I'd like to think so. I think there's, for me, a question that needs to be answered by the head coach here, Webster, and how he's going to use his young feet as opposed to the old legs that are in the side. And he's going to have to do it very wisely and put players in and out so that he can keep some momentum going. But as we saw on the weekend, if you put some young blood out there, you give them some confidence, they'll go out there against the top teams and they'll perform. And I don't think he should be worried about hurrying blokes back. I think he should rest them.
Okay, to win, or to rather make that 8, you're going to need 13 or 14 wins. They're on 4 at the moment, so they're going to need another 9 or 10 wins. Dolphins at home, Cowboys away, Storm at home, Titans away, Broncos at home. That is the next 5 fixtures with a bye in between that as well. I will answer that question at the end of that Broncos game, because by that stage the team is going to have to be over the 500. You know, you can't play the last 6 or 7 games still needing to make up time. So, but just in terms of the confidence that it gives, and also for Andrew Webster knowing that, hey, if he does get continuous injuries, which have happened, that these other guys are going to step up for him. So without that win, I'd be extremely worried, but that win, I think, has changed everything. Cronulla are clearly the team to beat in the comp.
At the moment, like, no one cares about now, Marty. It's when it comes down to the back end of the season. No one cares about the beginning, definitely don't care about the middle. They only care when they get back down to the top 4, and as we know, no one wins a competition outside of that top 4. So Cronulla, for me, are the team at the moment to beat. They're so good across the board. They've got size. They've got a very good halfback in Nico Hines. But the question will always remain, when they make that next step to the next game up, it's a different level, can Nico Hines demand the game? And that's the big question he has to answer.
Well, the last 3 games, if you can add the one that's coming this weekend, it is going to be Melbourne, the Roosters and the Panthers, okay? So I think most people at the start of the season are saying that definitely Melbourne and definitely the Panthers are in the top 4. That Roosters side had won 3 in a row. They were looking damn good, and they bowled both of those guys, Melbourne, and they've beaten the Roosters as well. If they beat Penrith this weekend, at the moment, well, are they an injury away? Are they a Nico Hines injury away from coming back to the pack or not? They've won 7 in a row, mate.
Well, they did beat Melbourne down there without Nico Hines, but I don't think they won a grand final without Nico Hines.
The ugly face of rugby league emerging again with this guy, Taylor May, over the weekend. Is it time that the league said, get gone, loser?
100%. 100%. They've just been handed a gift. All right, on the back of, just going to say the centre for Sydney City there.
Jennings,
Michael Jennings. On the back of Michael Jennings and the palaver that went on around that. Here they have another domestic violence case, along with a heap of racism that's going on against Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker, and they're in a tsunami at the moment, the NRL, and they have the opportunity to make things right. Stamp it out. Get rid of it right now.
So you think that he's got to be made an example of? This is the guy that had an off-field incident where he smashed a fan a couple of years ago, clocked him from behind. Then the speeding round in the car, giggling with his mate, driving 100 k's through suburban streets, which was only a couple of months ago, still hasn't learned his lesson. Now this domestic violence charge, which is actually dated prior to that. There's something wrong with this guy. This guy, I mean, he obviously isn't learning his lessons, but also does he need to be removed from the game for a period of time to either get his head right or just to say, dude, if you can't actually behave yourself, we don't want you in this game?
I think the NRL should look at the licences and say if you can't control... Look, we're a game of rugby league and a very good sport, a collision sport. We're not a bunch of gang...
But these guys, some of these guys
a gang
think
of
they
blokes
are,
running
though, mate.
around
They actually
bullying people.
Well,
Just get rid of it.
You think so? Make an example of him?
Make an example in the competition of anybody that does not play the game properly. And I mean on and off the field. Just, stop it. This stuff annoys me, mate. Domestic violence and racism, it's getting boring. Sort it out.
Okay, and for all of those people who think, oh no, this has actually got nothing to do with what is on the field. Listen, if this was the NFL, they own their sport and they just say, we let you play. You don't have a right to play. We own the game and we let you play. And that's what the NRL should be doing.
100%.
Exactly the same thing. All right. The Magic Round needs to be spread around.
No, it does not. All right. You've just found yourself a big, 44,000 carat diamond sitting up there on the Queensland coast, right in the middle of the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, and it's called Brisbane, and they've got a beautiful stadium there that you can watch any game of rugby league. Finals will be there. Origin's going to be there. Magic Round is there. There's no 50 million. Is that what they said?
That's
I reckon they'll
generating
be
something
close
like
to
that.
100 million. Leave it there forever.
See, this is where sports get it completely wrong. And if this was rugby, they would be sitting around a committee meeting at the moment going, it's not broke, so how do we try and refix something there? And that's exactly it. I totally agree with you. I mean, as long as the crowds keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming, why would you move it? The only other place that they could potentially play it is Sydney Rugby League stronghold. Maybe they moved it down to Melbourne, but Melbourne hasn't supported rugby league like it hasn't supported the rugby union round. So, no, but I'm just waiting for the administrative buff heads to botch this up and want to move. But you just said they've signed it to 2027, right?
They've signed it to 2027, and to get the New Zealand perspective on it, then they should have the cultural round in New Zealand.
That's not a bad idea.
You know what I mean?
I quite like that idea.
Actually bring all the teams in, have a cultural round here.
And they could do that in Auckland. All right.
The Indigenous round.
South Sydney and the Tigers end the season now for both you losers.
I reckon it's a fight. I reckon it's a dead set fight over who gets the wooden spoon. I don't think Latrell Mitchell finishes the season.
Why do you say that?
I actually think he's going to walk. I think the stuff, the booing that happened on the weekend and the way that he went into his shell, I think it's going to become too much for him. I think he's going to have to take a mental health break. 100%. And I think actually, I'm a little bit worried he's going to walk away from the game. And that's going to be sad. So I think South and West Tigers are fighting it out.
If he walks away from the game, where does he end up? He's not going to rugby, mate.
He'll be going to Japan.
You think so?
Yeah.
Play rugby up there?
Well, mate, did you forget Sir Steve Hansen was on the Canterbury high performance team? He loves the rugby league. Absolutely. Who do you think Foster's, most excited about coming to Japan?
Yeah, Joey Mano, they both said that.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now.
What about your boy Benji? I ask this every week. Why doesn't he get the sack, mate? Why doesn't Benji get the
surprised if
sack,
they're trying
mate?
to get Benji Marshall over there coaching.
Well, he won't have a job after this year, will
There
he?
you go. He'll join Fozzie.
Have you guys disagreed on any of these? I think you've agreed on all of them.
Last one. Penrith
gotta give him a win.
Penrith is still going to be in the grand final.
No, I think you can put that to bed after the weekend. And this is a really good example of Nathan Cleary and the effect he has on the team. They do not go side to side. They do not throw passes willy-nilly. Their kicking game doesn't go... Like Jerome Luai, he hasn't got a decent kicking game, I'm telling you now. And the kicking game of Nathan Cleary is bar the best in the competition. No Nathan Cleary, Marty, they will not win the competition.
Well, it looks as though Cameron Munster is going to be out for Origin as well. So there's that playing field there. No Nathan Cleary, and you reckon Penrith don't win it. No Munster. Can Melbourne still win it?
Yes. Because they've still got Jerome Hughes and Peppenhausen will come back, and they've got Harry Grant. Well, you got 3 Australians sitting there in the spine. Of course they can.
Well, yeah, I think that Ivan Cleary is clever enough to know that with his son, he's just going to keep him back till he can come and play a succession again.
He's going to have to. I think Ivan's going to work that out. He's going to have to keep him there. Like, you don't want to bring him back with a dicky hammy and he pushes 8 weeks and misses the finals.
The Influix Cleanup Award.
This is where you take the goop, the gunk, and you turn it into gold. So after a magic round, who as a player, or who as a team stood out to you that you think deserves this award this week?
I had a mate come in this morning and say to me, you're not going to believe it, but I was sitting at the table having a beer and a mate come over and he said, what do you reckon? He said, I reckon the Warriors
You had a beer
win.
before the show?
No, this is on Saturday.
This is on
Saturday, just before, Magic Round's going. And he said, I think the Warriors will win. And he put his ticket down on the table and he backed them at $4.75. I'm not going to tell you how much he put on it, but he put plenty on it. And I have to give it to the Warriors this weekend, like across the board. Andrew Webster, because I think Marty, for all the bad stuff that's been going on till this point, I think the injuries have actually helped Andrew Webster find some answers. Here's one, Clockstead at 6, okay? Chuck Roger back to fullback because he's great at fullback. Nickel Clockstead to 6 and get your players back around and you create a spine. The other part is that use your young legs wisely. Use your young legs wisely. Don't rely on your old boys. I know you need experience in your competition, but the competition is so close at the moment. If you've got players playing downtime, especially your older boys, rest them and put some young blood in there and let them do what you saw on the weekend.
And they've got an overlap here.
TK's Top 5.
We got time to squeeze a couple of texts in after this, but we always round the show up with Tony picking his top 5. At the moment, the Sharks are on top. They've won 7 in a row, as I keep saying. They've won 9 out of 10. They're on 20 points. The Storm are in second. They just keep rolling on. They've won 8 out of the 10 games. Panthers and Dolphins are both 7 and 3. Broncos are at 5 on 7 and 4.
Number 5.
Raiders. I've got to give it to Ricky. Yeah, the Ricky, Laurie Daly, Mal Meninga, the way they got the boys up, 11 men, and won that game against the Bulldogs. They make my top 5. I actually, honestly, Marty, I think they're smoky for top 4 out of all of those teams.
Number 4.
You better give it to the Wars, mate, after that.
I can't give it to the Wars, mate. I've got to give it to the Dolphins. I've got to leave them there. If the Wars were winning as consistently as the Dolphins were winning, it's you. That's why you think Usyk won. Because Usyk knocked him nearly out in the 9th round, but he lost majority of the other rounds.
He did lose a majority of most of those rounds. He won
Dolphins,
6 out of 7 out of the rounds. What 5 were you watching?
Well, how many games have the Dolphins won?
7.
How many have the Warriors won?
4.
Okay, so who sits in the top 4?
Okay, I'll give you that.
3.
I can't go away from the... am I going to move them there? I'm going to go to Storm here. Number 3. All right? I think they're going to go on a little bit of a slide. I think they're going to start to hurt without Munster. If Jerome Hughes doesn't come back and really bite down on getting them some wins, Harry Grant's going to have to take a break through Origin period. Is this the time where we see the Storm get kicked out of the 4? Probably.
Okay.
Number 2.
I don't agree with you. I just think they are the model of consistency. Number 2 is obviously the Panthers then, isn't it?
No, I'm going to go the Sharks.
What? They're top of the table, mate. They've won 9. They've won 7 on the trot. Who haven't they beaten?
No, I'm sorry. The Sharks still don't convince me that they're top shelf, if you know what I mean.
What do they have to do?
They have to be playing like this at the back end of the year. All right.
Well, we can only evaluate them now after round 11.
No, well, look, I think that Nico Hines will be the number 7. All right, for New South Wales. And Marty, I've said this. I said this how many weeks ago? About 4 weeks ago. That if he doesn't have a blinder through the series, he's going to come back, and he's probably the Sharks aren't going to be able to get him back up. It's going to destroy the kid.
Number 1.
You got the Panthers at 1 after the Warriors beat them.
No. Come
you
on,
got
man.
the Wars at 1.
I got the Wars at number 1, mate. I got the Wars at number 1 after.
Okay, after the weekend.
Hey, look, it's after every week, innit?
Yeah, of course it is, mate.
You tell me, Marty. You tell me anybody, apart from me on last Thursday when you text me, who picked the Warriors to win that game.
No. Look, I mean, this is apart from you and your mate. No, well, the only people that did were Andrew Webster in the confines of that dressing room convincing his players.
And it was a mountain to climb, like a massive mountain to climb, in the context of us all sitting there going, mate, they'll be probably get lucky to get through the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, same.
I'll tell you what.
That was me, mate. I got to own up to that. I thought they'd get flogged by 20.
Confidence now. They win the next 2 and go into the bye. Mate, we're back in the 8.
The man to set up the try.
That was the Rugby League Hour, brought to you by MicroBio Solutions Limited, solving environmental issues using green technologies. Visit microbio.co.nz.
It started with a Mitchell try.